PD. Joining us in studio is Phoenix Police Chief Michael Sullivan. Chief, welcome in again. Welcome in. Appreciate you coming in. Have you gotten any sleep?
Not a whole lot last night. We had a busy evening.
Can we talk about those two things that have been reported in the news? First of all, the multiple carjackings. What's the latest on this? Can you tell us about this case a little?
Yeah, the investigation's still evolving. So what I'm going to talk about right now is the best information I have at this time, but it's unbelievable. First, I want to commend the officers. Put themselves in harm's way between a violent criminal wanting to hurt and who did hurt citizens of Phoenix, and bravely did what they did to be able to take the person in custody. So yesterday, this started as an investigation of we were helping another jurisdiction look for a violent criminal, located him, and in the process of trying to detain him, all these incidents began happening. Everybody knows, and we've talked about it on the news, we had a shooting at the 51 around Indian School. But this entire incident, just to give you the perspective, it went from there to down to 10th and Only in South Phoenix. Included 5 vehicle accidents, 1 serious wreck. We have a citizen of Phoenix that's in the hospital that had a serious injury. That happened at 7th and Roosevelt. And there were 4 carjackings during this incident, 2 additional attempted carjackings. And, we estimate, investigators estimate at this point, 24 felonies were committed in this crime spree. Unbelievable. But we brought it to conclusion, and I can't commend those officers enough for being dedicated and putting themselves in harm's way.
Yeah, that was the whole thing. Sounded from everything I heard about it. It's got to be the most terrifying thing, especially for the police, when you've got a guy that's desperate and violent and has no concern for life. You have to protect people, but you got to get this guy before he hurts somebody else. Absolutely.
And Mike, and one other thing, this is going to be our 22nd officer-involved shooting because we fired our weapon during this incident. Many times these get characterized as we're involved in a lot of officer-involved shootings here in Phoenix. 17 of those have involved people either with firearms or simulated firearms, and 13 of those folks are prohibited possessors, something that I've talked about over and over again, and we have to make sure that we hold those people accountable.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I want to get into in the crime reduction plan that you put in place and some of the things that have happened lately. But before we move on, the latest thing this morning, we were talking about stolen car with a child inside. Is there any update on that? Can you give us any information on that?
I do know that we've recovered the car at this point. I just got an update right before I came into the studio, waiting on additional updates.
So we don't know about the child, but we do know they've got the car back.
And that's the last information I have.
Okay, so if you don't mind, let's talk about the crime statistics that just came out, some of the violent crimes. There's been kind of a mixed bag of some crimes went up a little bit, others dropped down. Do you attribute that to the new focus on the crime reduction plan? Is that part of why this is happening?
The men and women of the Phoenix Police Department are focused on making sure that we drive down crime. Our first 6 months, while I'm encouraged and we have momentum, despite all the challenges we have with staffing, we're making good progress.
How are the officers, the people that are in the field, how do they feel about this plan? Has this been well received? I know that when it first comes out, it takes a while for people to digest. Are they taking this well? Do they like this new plan, this new focus?
What I can tell you is, as officers, we like being pointed on what we're expected to do. They like having a plan. We join to help keep people safe. So having direction in that area is something that's always appreciated, and that's some appreciation that I've had officers come up and tell me directly.
I know that it's been said multiple times by you and by people on your staff, PIOs and others, that the focus on prohibited possessors. Let's go back to the tragic shooting of Officer Moldovan, and now the guy that provided a gun, not the gun, but a gun to him, was just sentenced to prison, and he helped him illegally obtain a gun. What does this say about that focus on prohibited possessors?
It says we're relentless. We didn't stop with the actual shooting of Officer Moldovan. We worked with our federal partners to track down all the weapons that were part of this process, and we're holding somebody accountable that provided that weapon to that violent criminal.
So the guy that did this was a firearms, had a federal license, and circumvented the rules and helped him obtain a firearm by circumventing the background check. He'll never be able to have that license again, right? Is that part of the plea agreement?
Absolutely. He'll be a convicted felon, And, I just have to thank the work of the U.S. Attorney and the ATF on this case in collaboration with us.
It's frustrating for someone like myself. I'm a big Second Amendment advocate. We have the conversation. We all hate to see the violence in the streets. It's been my opinion that the way you're really going to attack this is doing exactly what you're doing by going after the people that shouldn't have the firearms. Is that working? Are you seeing a better focus, and are we getting a lot of those guns and people off the streets?
What I can tell you is we have less shooting victims this year, and our homicide rate is down compared to last year. Now, those rates were high, and I acknowledge that, but what we're doing is good progress, and I have to attribute it to the men and women and the work that they're doing out there in the streets.
So when it comes to if you're focused in these areas and making arrests or you're building cases, it's got to get turned over to detectives. And we're going to talk more about staffing later, but how is this putting a strain on the detective units? Because you've got to be short-staffed there if you're putting more people in patrol.
And that's why community is so important. We can talk about all the work that the police do, but we cannot do it without the community being able to provide us information, share information, and for detectives to be able to act on it. Certainly, our staffing challenges are there, and they're not going away anytime soon. But that's not an excuse for us not doing our job.
Property crimes, auto theft, wasn't that one of the areas where it ticked up? What's kind of the plan moving forward to try to tamp that down?
Yeah, we've seen an incredible explosion, particularly in the thefts of Kias and Hyundais over the last several months. It's really a social media explosion where they've taught folks how to steal these cars, like it was back when I was a young cop in the early 90s, and there were ways to break steering columns and start cars real quick. There's ways to steal these cars, and we have folks that are out there doing that. We've seen a 700% increase in thefts of Kias so far the first half of the year, and over a 400% increase in Hyundais.
Now, there's also been talk about lawsuits or complaints against the manufacturers that they're cutting corners and they're making it too easy to steal these vehicles. Is there any validity in your mind to that?
I can tell you that some of those older vehicles, it is very easy to steal them, and from what I understand, the fix is the club. Old school fix that I think, Mike, you probably remember.
I do.
From back in the day. We have some age on us, some vintage age on us, but that's the fix. And that's what we would tell folks, to follow those manufacturer recommendations to be able to help keep those vehicles safe.
And part of this, all of this is kind of folds together, and I don't know if this is coming out of left field, but your agency now has also been charged with part of the cleanup of that area called the zone, and it seems like you're already stretched very thin. How is that going for your agency to be involved in that? Does it feel like it's working and kind of get that area back to where it needs to be?
Yeah, what I can tell you is our Office of Homeless Solutions has done an incredible job down there. We're a support agency in this.
Right.
Homelessness is not a crime. We're there to enforce laws, and when we have criminal behavior down there, and we've done a number of operations focused on that. However, the lead are the social services. These are some people that are in a very difficult situation, and we want to make sure that we lead with services as a city first.
And I think that's an interesting point, that people don't understand that homeless people are also victims of crime because of the situation they're in. And that's where the fine line is, because some people, just because you're homeless, you're not immune to being a victim. But there's also people that are other homeless people committing crimes against people in those same neighborhoods. It's got to be a tough place to work.
Absolutely. And our team that works down there every day, very challenging situation.
We want to get to staffing issues if we can. Certainly the DOJ investigation. We'd like to talk about that and a few other big stories. So you're going to stick around for one more segment?
Absolutely.
All right. So Chief Sullivan is in studio with me from the Phoenix Police Department. Coming up in just a few moments, we're going to talk about the DOJ investigation. We're going to talk about a lot of these other things next.
The Give-a-thon for Phoenix Children's is coming soon. You'll hear some incredible parents and kids tell you how your support can make a difference.
I think I've learned some really good coping skills there, and I think I've learned how to manage my emotions a lot better. They help me through hard times.
The KTAR Give-a-thon for Phoenix Children's is presented by your Valley Hyundai dealers and Auction Indian community.
Made to Shine. Real stories from Shane Company customers.
I was 20 years old, stationed in Hawaii, and 2 weeks before I was deployed, I met the love of my life. The second I returned, I bought a cheap ring at the base exchange and proposed. 15 years later, I went to Shane Company and got her a one-of-a-kind ring with a pear-shaped diamond. It's the ring she deserves.
Shine forever with Shane Company's hand-selected diamonds, as unique as your love story. Shane Company, fine jewelry since 1929.
Nothing can get your morning commute off to a worse start than a broken garage door. Dieter Dan here from my friends at Smokey's Garage Door. Smokey's has been repairing garage doors in Arizona for over 40 years. Their competitive pricing and fast professional technicians have earned them a 4.8-star rating on Google with nearly 750 real customer reviews. Schedule online at smokiesgaragedoor.com. It's no wonder Smokey's is Arizona's most trusted name in garage doors. Check them out at smokiesgaragedoor.com. That's smokiesgaragedoor.com.
I'm Scott Trout, attorney and CEO of the domestic litigation firm Cordell & Cordell. We help men deal with the life changes triggered by divorce, such as child custody and property division, among many others. But life changes also occur after divorce. These changes can make parts of your existing court order irrelevant or harder to follow. If you feel a modification to your court orders might be necessary, talk to us at Cordell & Cordell. We're a partner men can count on.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Phoenix area attorneys, Scott Trout, licensed in Missouri, Illinois, and Georgia only. CordellCordell.com.
I was crossing the street when I met the love of my life. I chased after her. Nothing would stand in my way. Not the dog walker, nor the hot dog vendor. Finally reaching her, I asked, "What do you call that amazing smell?"
It's Gain Flings.
Gain Flings. My love had a name, but more importantly, it had a scent.
Fall in love with Gain Flings. Seriously good scent. Gain Flings with 50% more freshness ingredients versus leading bargain detergent.
Summertime in Arizona. As the temperature rises, we spend more time indoors, cranking up the AC and enjoying the cool comfort of our homes. And what better place to gather than around your kitchen island? If you've been contemplating a few changes to the heart of your home, now is the perfect time. Hi, this is Susan from Trevec Remodeling and Roofing. We specialize in delivering quick and gorgeous kitchen remodels. Our team of experienced professionals handle every step of the process from the initial design to the final installation. Just imagine the kitchen you've been dreaming of. We'll work closely with you to bring your vision to life. But first, let's schedule an in-home consultation to discuss your kitchen remodel. Schedule your in-home consultation today by visiting us at Trevec.com. That's TRAV like Victor, EK.com. Trevec, together building dreams for more than 20 years. Oh, by the way, Trevec Remodeling and Roofing is not responsible for any increased desire to cook or host gatherings in your new, stunning kitchen.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe that I will go back to school.
I believe that I will be able to play with my friends.
I believe that one day we can beat cancer and find a cure for it.
I believe I am a champion.
I believe.
For the last 14 years, your Valley Hyundai dealers have been making miracles happen as a proud sponsor of KTAR and Arizona Sports Give-a-thon, benefiting the Phoenix Children's Hospital. Your Valley Hyundai dealers invite you to lend a hand in the fight against pediatric cancer. Join us during Hyundai's Miles for Miracles, and for every mile you test drive, Hyundai will donate $1 to Phoenix Children's Hospital. Our goal is to raise up to $275,000 to fight cancer. Visit your local Valley Hyundai dealer today and help us turn miles into miracles. A simple test drive can go a long way to putting an end to childhood cancer. Find out more at HyundaiMiracles.com.
I believe.
Do you?
Summers are brutal in Phoenix, and if you hate to paint year after year, then do what Deanna did. She called Rhino Shield.
I was noticing some cracks in the stucco and the paint's faded. I was like, okay, I think I should get the house painted. So my neighbor had a Rhino Shield placard in the yard, and after they were finished, I was just, wow. With the warranty and everything, it just seemed silly not to go that route.
The ceramic coating of Rhino Shield is specifically formulated for our climate.
So the Rhino Shield crew came out. Nothing was damaged in the process. I was very happy. They just didn't leave a mess. You couldn't even tell they were there. And the house looked so different. It just looked like a new home.
Better than paint, backed by a 25-year transferable warranty, and now get the protection of Rhino Shield for 10% off the regular price.
Rhino Shield, I think it increases the value and the curb appeal of your home. Definitely worth it.
Rhino Shield owner Jim Williams.
This offer is limited, so call me at 855-4U-RHINO. That's 855-4-U, Rhino.
Go Rhino!
Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Arizona's news station.
KTAR. On air, 92.3 FM. Online at KTAR.com. And streaming live on the KTAR News app. Your breaking news and traffic now.
Good morning, it's 8:30. I'm Becky Lynn in for Jeff Munn today, and here is our top story. You heard it here live on KTAR.
We've recovered the car at this point, waiting on additional update.
Another carjacking in Phoenix, and this time with a 12-year-old child inside the stolen car. Phoenix police say a woman stole another man's car at a convenience store parking lot near downtown Phoenix while the man's child was still inside the car. Phoenix Police Chief Michael Sullivan exclusively telling KTAR that they've recovered the car, but no details yet on the child or the carjacker. The situation is still under investigation. And don't go anywhere because our exclusive interview with Chief Sullivan continues next. Meanwhile, southbound State Route 51 has now been reopened at Indian School after a 12-hour closure following a wild crime spree that included an officer-involved shooting and 4 people carjacked. KTAR's Jim Cross joins us live from the news center.
Yeah, Becky Lynn. A Phoenix police officer fired on the armed suspect who had just carjacked the first vehicle on the 51. He wasn't hit before leading police on a miles-long pursuit along surface streets, crashing into several cars, leaving one woman with life-threatening injuries. Again, Phoenix Police Chief Michael Sullivan with KTAR's Mike Broomhead just minutes ago.
And there were 4 carjackings during this incident, 2 additional attempted carjackings. Investigators estimate at this point, 24 felonies were committed in this crime spree. Unbelievable.
Now, this all ended when the suspect crashed into a home where he was taken into custody by police near 15th Avenue in Dobbins, and police have recovered a gun. Live at the News Center, Jim Cross, KTAR News.
Well, the Maricopa County Attorney's Office waits for Governor Katie Hobbs to sign Lori Vallow Daybell's extradition papers. County Sheriff Paul Penzone says his department is committed to going by the books once she's in Arizona.
Her story gets a lot of coverage, and it's horrific, but I could tell you, unfortunately, we got a handful of folks that are in our custody right now that their circumstances are a heck of a lot different, so we're just constant professionals and manage it as each circumstance that presents itself.
When it comes to housing Vallow, he tells Arizona's Morning News the county jails already have a strict process in place. Let's get a check of the traffic right now with Detour Dan in the Valley Chevy Dealers Traffic Center.
Thank you, Becky Lynn. Good morning. And unfortunately, I greet you with a long crash list. Things got a little busy here in the 8 o'clock hour and still are. I got a wreck in the 10 eastbound at the 51st Avenue on-ramp. That is the point B for a pretty good backup here, all the way back from about 91st Avenue into the crash. We also have a backup and a crash on the southbound 51 freeway. It's a wreck southbound, south of Glendale, and it's got traffic backed up all the way back from approaching Northern, a good 1.5 mile backup southbound 51 south of Glendale for a crash there. Surface Street wrecks, boy, are they piling up. Bell Road at R.H. Johnson Boulevard, I-10 eastbound at 115th Avenue, a motorcycle-involved crash at the overpass. 107th Avenue and Buckeye, southbound lanes reportedly blocked from a collision there, and other wrecks at 32nd Street in Thomas, 56th Street in the Loop 101 Pima Freeway, 99th Avenue south of Olive and Deer Valley Road, west of Grand Avenue. Detour Dan, KTAR News.
We're expecting our high to get all the way up to 108 degrees today and 35% humidity in the air, 10% chance of rain, 87 overnight, 20% chance we'll see showers tomorrow, a high of 106 expected. In Peoria, it's 92 degrees. Weather brought to you by Howard Air. I'm Becky Lynn on Arizona's news station, KTAR News.
Our news app. All right, we are back in studio. With me is Chief Sullivan from the Phoenix Police Department. Let's start with, if you don't mind, I want to get to staffing and some of the other things, but we have to talk about the DOJ investigation. Can you give us an update on where this investigation is, and do you see any light at the end of the tunnel for this being over soon?
That's a good question for the Department of Justice, is what I tell everybody when I get that question. But it's gone on for 2 years. We just passed the 2-year date of this investigation. What I can tell you is how we've cooperated throughout the investigation, providing, over 20,000 body-worn videos. Imagine the hours with that. 80,000 documents, over 200 hours of ride-alongs, and then over 100 interviews with our employees. We had some challenges at the beginning, being able to provide information because we required the Department of Justice to follow the rules that are out there with criminal justice protected information. We offered several solutions that they turned down, but we eventually got to a spot to be able to share that information. That and the pandemic put us back several months. But I think we're at the point that we're starting to wrap up, Mike.
When you can you let us behind the curtain a little bit? I don't know if you can or can't. Do they give you information along the way as they get things in, as they watch things? Do they give you feedback, or is it all come in one lump at the end? How do you? Is there a conversation about some of those things? Hey, we saw this. Does it work that way?
I mean, I've had a handful of conversations since I've been there, gotten some pieces of information, but no real substantive information. I can make assessments of where we need to fix things and work and get better, and we've been doing that since I got here.
So when you revised the use of force policy, when those things happened, I know a lot of information and input went into that. Was that part of this investigation? Was it with the DOJ's help and input in that as well?
Now, first of all, I would have done that whether the Department of Justice was here or not. We did get input from the Department of Justice. Their input will be included in the final policy as it comes out and we roll out training. But we also got input from our members and from the public.
And it's one of the things I've mentioned on the air. It's got to be a very difficult place for you to be because you have a responsibility to do things ethically and professionally as officers. But at the same time, you've been a cop for a very long time. You know what it's like out there. At the same time, you have to make sure that your officers know that they have the right and they have the duty to defend themselves and each other.
It's all about balance, Mike. And that's what I tell people all the time. Our officers have the most difficult job in America today, having to make split-second decisions. And, we saw it just yesterday. And they do it on a daily basis.
So now let's take an incident like yesterday before we get into staffing. An incident like that happens. How long before there will be kind of a debrief? Well, you will go back and look at this and use it as a training tool so that you're better next time something like this happens. How immediate does that happen?
Well, Mike, we release videos after these critical incidents where there's officer-involved shootings within 14 days, not just internally but to the public. So those videos are put out to the public, but those videos are also available to our precinct commanders to sit down and talk with the men and women that have to go out and do this job every day.
So as far as staffing and recruiting goes, are you on the rise as far as recruiting and retention? Do you see that the Phoenix Police Department, as far as size, is going in the right direction?
I would love to say that there's an explosion. We're doing better than we were last year. We're about 2% down at the staffing level where we were the same time last year. That number's shrinking. There's more people in the academy today than there was this time last year. But it's going to be a very, very slow process as we begin to do that. That's why it's important for us to bring on additional professional staff like civilian investigators, crime analysts, to be able to augment what we do.
There was a story yesterday I talked about. There was a retired lieutenant in the city of Seattle that wrote a 15-page, just a scathing retirement letter about everybody in the department. If there are places like Seattle and others where officers are not as happy working in the conditions they're in, do you recruit in those places to try to get those officers to come to Phoenix?
Mike, I'm glad you asked that question because just about a month ago, we had an officer from Seattle who came down here, came on as a civilian investigator, saw what the Phoenix Police Department was like, saw the culture here, said, hey, I want to be a sworn officer again after a full career up in Seattle. So we have seen that.
So how this now, let's bring this back, if you don't mind, to the crime reduction plan. You said last time you were here, we have no choice. It has to work. We have to do this. Do you feel now with the plan in place, with the staffing that you have, that it's getting done the way it needs to?
I saw the first plans that were coming out of the precincts here this past week. They're strong. That's important. We're also talking about performance management. I know CompStat gets a real bad name sometimes in policing. All it is performance management. If you're coaching a team, you want to make sure that you're taking a look at your performance and it's at the level that you expect. We're bringing in national experts that are going to be here next week to start implementing that process as well.
There was also a press release where a case that got wrapped up. A Wall Street Journal reporter was detained. But there was a lot that was left out of that story at the very beginning, and how that reporter conducted himself and some of the things he said that happened that didn't when the body camera video was out. That's now come to a resolution, and your agency has put out a statement. How important is it that if you're going to publicly say we did something wrong and an officer's been held accountable, that you defend them and say, here's what the evidence finds, that the officer did the right thing?
I think, once again, we have to tell the whole story. We talk about being self-assessing, self-correcting, something I've said since I've got here. And there was areas for our improvement in this case, but we found a number of the allegations were unfounded. And I would just encourage people to go back and look at the entire body-worn video as they take a look at this case.
It's interesting from a civilian point of view to watch how difficult it must be to be a police officer. Is it difficult to recruit now more so because of some of the anti-police rhetoric in the last few years? Or is it that because of social media and everything else, people get a more accurate look at what the job entails, and it's just not something they want to approach?
This is a different time and era, different generation, but certainly the last, 5 to 7 years has been the toughest that I've seen in my almost 30 years of policing. But we're getting the right people. It's smaller numbers than we've got in the past, but we want to get the right people that have the right heart, the heart for service, that want to do an incredible job and really feel fulfilled at the end of the day and at the end of their career.
Yeah, and some people would say, if you have a position that's open and you have a very high threshold, that sometimes maybe you need to relax some of the standards. But this is a job where you can't relax the standards. The standards have to remain incredibly high.
Standards are incredibly important, and make sure we get the best and brightest that are out there protecting and serving the citizens of Phoenix.
Do you believe, looking at the data and seeing how things are working, that the next time we are talking, whether it's 6 months from now or a year from now, that this crime reduction plan is going to continue to see crime going in the right direction? Do you believe in this plan that much?
I certainly do. I think if we focus on crime, I've seen it over and over throughout my career, we can affect crime. And hopefully, Mike, it's not 6 months before I sit down with you again.
I hope not. Chief, I know you've got to run. I appreciate the time as always, and I look forward to having you in studio again.
Thanks again for having me.
All right, that's Chief Sullivan, Phoenix